Very good evening as we come to the climax of another football season. Welcome to our Sporting Talking Sheffield here on Sheffield Live TV this evening. And once again, we've got a couple of great guests. If you were with us a fortnight ago, we had the pleasure of the company of one of the men of the moment in football, Neil Warnock, the Rotherham United manager and the Rotherham United Messiah, as they're all calling him right now, and with good reason. But behind a Messiah is a very good assistant manager. And that's Kevin Blackwell. Pleasure to see you, Kevin. Good old friend of mine, former Sheffield United manager, former Leeds United manager. We'll have some viewers from Leeds here this evening as well. And Greg Fee, the former Sheffield Wednesday defender from Howard Wilkinson era, who's currently, among other things, working for Everton. Is that right?
That's right, Alan, yes.
As a scout?
As a scout. I work in the academy recruitment, which, as Kevin will know, is an industry in itself, really. So it's quite a complex area, but yeah, in the academy recruitment for Everton.
We'll hear about Everton's summer targets later in the show, folks. Kevin, it's just been remarkable. You and Neil back together. You spent quite a long time apart, you know, apart from QPR, but here you are back together again. Can you believe how well it's gone?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
you can believe it.
No, we've got a great working relationship. Always have done, and we know what each other's strengths are, and we play to it. And you know, I'm thoroughly enjoying my time with him again.
What are each other's strengths when you talk about it?
He is without doubt one of the most. He might as well have been a psychologist because he's very good at picking up people's strengths and weaknesses and working on that. And a little word here, a little word there, and he's terrific at it. And you know, a lot of people talk about Neil and the sort of manager he is, but everybody that's played for him love him, and that's really his massive strength.
He's able to say the right thing to the right player at the right time.
Yeah, very much so.
Be that criticism or praise or.
Absolutely. You know, it's not all carrot. There's a bit of stick there as well, but the players respect him for his knowledge and for what he's done. And the fact that so many players have been developed under him as well shows that not only does he, you know, help them in terms of the football side, but it helps them in their career. And many of them contact Neil when they've moved on, and I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, I bring Greg in on this because a few weeks ago, just I think the week before Neil, Richard Wood was in here, and he talked about Neil's man management. He said he got a rollicking at Hillsborough where you won 1-0, half time, too many unnecessary fouls close to the penalty area. He said, and then he had a dreadful first half against Middlesbrough, a game that you won, and he said Neil was going in expecting the same treatment, instead of which Neil put an arm around his shoulder in that situation. So he obviously got it right both times because.
Well, yes, I mean, you would say that Neil's. I mean, the one thing he's got now is plenty of experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that we're looking at now in football is that the experience is being thrown away too quickly, and the younger managers are coming in, but of course, without having the knowledge of when to do it and where to do it, and having seen the scenarios. So, you know, you're getting battered somewhere, you're under the cosh, it's not going well. You know, you don't need a shout at someone then, that's when they need a little bit of a pickup. But you can only do that by knowing the situation and having sort of smelt it and dealt with it before. And knowing
the people. You worked for Howard Wilkinson at the peak of your career, didn't you, at Sheffield Wednesday?
I did, yes. Yeah, I mean, Howard was probably quite similar in many ways to Neil he got. You know, he dealt with very simple things and got the best out of players to do simple things. I mean, I remember I was doing some work for TWI when Sheffield United were in the Premier League, and I think Colin Kazim-Richards was going down the right wing, and he had a chance to cross it. I think he got past the 18-yard box and he had a chance to deliver it in the box, and he cut it back and took a few more touches. And you know, Neil was extremely unhappy about that because obviously the instruction was to get the ball in the box, simple football. And I think, you know, Kevin might correct me, but I think that seems to be what Howard worked on. They were quite simple in their approach, and you know, it's proved to be successful.
Well, I think what we're saying as managers and coaches is that, you know, if Colin Kazim is going down the wing, and the strikers are in the box and they're anticipating the cross, and then he checks back out again. You know, the striker's made his run. Now he's got to recorrect his run, but he's in the wrong place now. And then he comes back, and so that's what we're saying. You know, football is very simple. And if you're a striker and you thrive on crosses, get the crosses in there, and that's as simple as that. So really, that's really why. And you know, simplicity is genius, as they say. It's a great comment, and I believe it's true.
Before we came on air, you were talking about putting round pegs in round holes at Rotherham.
Yeah.
Not asking anybody to do what they.
No, I mean,
do.
you know, it's no good asking someone to, you know, to do a job they're not equipped to do, and then having a go at them because they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Now it's really about looking at the players, looking at what they've got, strengths and weaknesses, and then try and give them as much, you know, help in their strengths and try and isolate their weaknesses so they're not, you know, sort of brought up and seen too often.
Yeah.
But as a team, when we were at Sheffield Wednesday doing very well, we all had a simple role and did it quite well. You know, as a defender, you knew that you'd try and get the ball in the back of the opponents, you'd squeeze up, and we had players who were very effective in that system.
And all the players know what their role is.
And we all knew what our role was.
So Greg's going to win the ball. I know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And then we start, and that's when you start to see teamwork. That's where teamwork becomes so effective. When everybody knows what the next man's going to do. You know, a throw in. Where are we going to throw it? How are we going to throw it? How high? What the pace is?
Yeah.
You know, corners. Who's putting it down? Where does it go in? When does it go in? Who's the first man? Who's the second? And all these things. And when it starts to come and gel, it makes it very easy to do a team talk. Let me tell you. And the confidence comes. The results come. And you know, when you go into training and you want to do something different, the lads will buy into it straight away, which is brilliant.
I mean, you've had this impact. This is what you're doing day to day. Neil, by his own admission, is coming later in the week, I think, and he's contributing the vital words and the motivation, right words at the right time. You've won 6 out of the last 8. You're unbeaten in that. Now, even in your very distinguished career as a coach and a manager, and Neil's, I'm thinking it's very hard to think you've ever surpassed that, either of you, in terms of a run. Anyway.
I think at Bramall Lane in 2003, 2004, we were phenomenal. That was a fantastic season where we got to the FA Cup, League Cup semi-final, playoff final, and we did have go on some great runs in that.
Sure, that was expected.
Well,
in some ways, because of what you'd done previously.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, at that time we were developing the club and it was starting to move forward, and that's really that season was a culmination of the 3 years build up to it. This is a different job because obviously the club was absolutely on its knees, and the results and everything about it and the set of fixtures that were coming up were really horrendous. So in terms of, I suppose, achieving something very quickly and getting the club out of the trouble, this would be the one. But the one that was there, you could see developing and then went on, because United then had nearly 10 years of going for the playoffs, the promotions or whatever, and FA Cups, semi-finals, league, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So one was a build-up. This one is an instant impact.
Very much so. Rotherham United are in undreamt of territory, except that you've now got the opposite problem of, you know, instead of raising everybody, you've got to keep everybody flat, if you like, now, haven't you?
No, I don't think so. No, because there's nothing, you know, if we were going to go for a promotion, then we'd have to temper it a little bit. Yeah. But now we want to drive on to the end of the season. That's what we want to do. And
but people are saying you're safe already. That's the problem. Huh?
Well, yeah, but the players, I mean, if you've seen them training, they know. And maybe we are safe. I mean, you know, the two teams below us now, Charlton and MK, have got to go on an unbelievable run now, and better the one that we've done. So, and they've got some. I mean, Charlton, I think, have got Derby, have got Middlesbrough, and someone else. They've got horrendous running at home. They're 3 home games, and MK Dons have got Sheffield, Preston, Sheffield Wednesday away, 2 back-to-back. So it's tough. We might well have got the points, but that's not what we're really looking at. And in this system, the way we've worked it, we've never once looked at their opposition's results. We've said, listen, we'll go out, we'll play our game, we'll get our results, and then whatever happens afterwards, happens afterwards. And we've never once worried about what MK Dons were doing or anybody else. We just kept grinding it. And then as the points accumulate, obviously people are highlighting now what the other teams have done.
Well, it's a 9-point gap as we speak, which is incredible, really.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a bit more about Rotherham later, but also about Leeds United and Sheffield United, about Sheffield Wednesday, just to bring that in, because Greg, you're a regular at Hillsborough in one of your many roles. One of your hats is a stats hat, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I do the. When I stopped playing, there was an initiative from the PFA and Opta to get ex-players involved in retain, I guess, players in the game. So I got involved with that, and I've been doing that just on match days. Unfortunately, I've got the luxury of covering Sheffield Wednesday each week, so that's a real bonus, really.
Enjoyed it this season?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it this season. I mean, it's been. Sheffield Wednesday has been a roller coaster, hasn't it, for a few years. We've had lots of problems behind the scenes. We've had various managers. We've had underperformed, really. And you know, it is a big club, and at the moment things look reasonably good. But as Kevin will know, those things can quickly change. You know,
a couple of Kevin? You're in a good position, having won at Hillsborough. One of only 2 teams, I think. Only 2 teams have won there, isn't it? Early season, and then you did. What do you make of Sheffield Wednesday now?
Well, I think Greg's absolutely spot on. They've had 10 years, 11 years or 12 years of real hard graft, trying to keep the ship afloat, all based on, you know, the finances of the club not being right. But I look at them now, and it's the strongest squad I've seen at Sheffield Wednesday by a mile in the last 10, 12 years. And, you know, we knew it was going to be tough when we went there, but they've got flair all over the pitch. In Forestieri, they've got a really exciting player. And I just think with the support that they've got, because you go there, and believe you me, you have got to stand up, not to just 11 players and the referees and whatever, but you've got to stand up to 30,000 Wednesdayites. And the one thing that's always impressed me is when you go there and they start singing their songs, it is one hell of a place to play at. And the hairs on the back of your head sometimes, you know, when you go and that's why, for me, Sheffield deserves a Premier League club. I think both of them should be there, but one of them's got to get there, and I think the best chance at the moment is Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They've got some good players, and they've got a special player in Forestieri.
Who wasn't playing that day against you, but
no,
you have to take what you.
Well, you know, we had players missing as well, so you know. But listen, at the end of the day, you know, you play the team. It's not just the individual. You play the team, and what. So you know, the caveat to that is that if he's not playing, does that mean they can't win games? And if that's the case, then it's a dangerous scenario. So the other players have got to step up to the plate. They've got to step up to the plate because he could get injured in the first. You know, I remember playing in the semi-final against Preston for United, and we lost Henderson and Ward in the same game. After 20 minutes, hamstring and a calf, and all of a sudden your whole plans. So you know, if Forestieri's not playing, they've got to make sure that he's not going to be the one that, because he doesn't play.
I mean, if you look at the stats, I think when he hasn't played, the results haven't gone particularly well for Sheffield Wednesday. So it just shows what his impact is on the team.
Top goal scorer, he's there at the moment. They survived without Barry Bannon for 3 games suspended. They feared, because he's the heartbeat of the side, very much.
Yeah, the results when Barry Bannon weren't playing, I think they had 3 victories.
They did.
So obviously, you know, that's a player that maybe they can replace, and they've got people in that position that can come in.
You mentioned Preston playoff final. That's one of 2 playoff finals you reached in your career, one of which was at Leeds United. And we'll talk about Sheffield United in more detail in the second half of the show. But Leeds United, you took to a final, and they were in crisis when you took over there. I remember from Eddie Gray in meltdown, weren't they, following the Ridsdale years? And here we are now in another crisis scenario. What do you make of it?
Well, it's once again, it all stacks or goes back to that era. It starts there, just like Sheffield Wednesday. Honestly, it's an absolute. You know, isn't it?
Definitely.
Carbon copy. You're saying, look at Leeds, well, look at Sheffield Wednesday. And all that started over poor financial management. Club spending more than they had, or gambling. In Leeds United's case, gambling on that playoff, the Championship League place, and they didn't get it. And they missed out by 1 point in the last game of the season. And from that point onwards, it's just trickled away. And I always think, you know, too often now managers are sacked. I think you've got to start looking at how the club is run at the top end, and the better run clubs at the top end are so much more successful because you've got a leader at the top. And we were at Leeds a rudderless ship. We went to there in the Premier League. Ridsdale had gone. Then we had, I think Trevor Birch came in. We went to effectively administration. The City of London PLC company sent Trevor up. Couldn't make any decisions. Couldn't sign players. And then it was just one thing after another. Then we got relegated. Then the club was bought out. Then the wages weren't being paid. And then there was 5 chairmen inside 6 weeks. And then it just went on.
But
and every week. So that got there. Yeah, and despite it, we still got to the playoff final. And it's an achievement that, you know, that I will always regard as maybe one of the best because of the size of the club. And every time, you know, we went away, 80% of clubs lost their next game after playing us. They'd given everything to play against Leeds United. So, and then it's never recovered from that day. And it's Ken Bates came in and he still had to deal with the 100 million debt. And that was a problem. And so, you know, quite clearly you couldn't go buy X, Y and Z. You still had to fund the debt. Then the club, you know, went bust. As you know, the financial people said it would do. It could never get out of the state it was in. And from that point onwards, it's never got right. And we've had managers, we've had chairmen, we've had more chairmen and more managers at Leeds United than any club in football at the moment. And it just doesn't
work.
Doesn't work at all.
No, it doesn't.
I was at Sheffield. I went to Leeds United a few times recently, and it gives you the impression that there's nobody who really cares about the club behind the scenes. You know, it's the same wallpapers there that's been there for 15 years. You know, they haven't painted the back room. There's a lack of care and a lack of leadership, and it does remind me of Sheffield Wednesday maybe going back 8 years.
But there's so much care among the supporters.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the same at Sheffield Wednesday, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, you've got so passionate supporters at both of those clubs.
And that's what I said. If you look at the two scenarios, they're absolutely
They're very
carbon copy.
similar,
And then you go to the supporters, and they are so passionate. It's an absolute crime. You know, to be there and see it unravel was one of the most uncomfortable things I've seen. And then, I mean, the day we lost the Premier League status was at Bolton. And I remember them showing the kids crying in the stands and whatever. It was a horrendous day, that.
There'll not be too much sympathy among most of our viewers, Sheffield viewers, but nonetheless, football fans can identify with other football fans and say, would we want to be in that situation?
Well, exactly.
No, we
and there, but the grace of God goes us. So make sure that your club is run well, and that sometimes as a supporter, you don't start making demands on the chairman or whatever that's not sustainable, because you can have a little fleeting bit of glory, and you can have a long time of unsuccessfulness.
Yeah, well, Kevin McCabe's tried to run Sheffield United like that, so, but he's been there a long, long time. You're one of his managers. He had a long time with just one manager and one coach, and then suddenly 8 in 8 years, I think.
Kevin was a great chairman, but you know, things unravelled at United at the time of the credit crunch. You know, Kevin was a big property developer, and we all know what happened to the property after 2008. So that put massive pressure on him and the club, and you can see what's happened since. So, but it's still a club that if it can get itself sorted out, will be there, but it's stuck now, and this is why people look at the clubs coming out of the Premier League. We're talking maybe Sunderland, Newcastle, and Aston Villa. Believe you me, they could be stuck outside that Premier League for quite a while. And once you get stuck outside a division, it takes some real work. And United, this is the 4th or 5th year they've been outside.
This is the 5th year.
The 5th year now they've been outside, and it's not getting any easier, is it?
Well, Leeds had the experience for 3, I think. Three or 4.
Well, you turn up to Bramall Lane, not being funny, but you're, Gillingham or Leighton Orient or someone, with the great respect to them, and you turn up at Bramall Lane and big stadium, whatever, and I'm guaranteeing you the players will give you 110%. You don't have to do a team talk. They'll think, I fancy playing here every week. The reason that they don't.
Despite that, they were huge favourites this year, and for whatever reason, it's not happened. But it does look as if they're going to put a stop to another manager. It does look like that. I can't swear 100%, but it looks like it.
This season they had 42 players. I came to the pre-season game against Newcastle, and they had 42 pros.
Yeah.
Now
So
if you can't find 11 out of 42, you know what I mean?
Mind you, is it better to find 11 out of 25 than trying to find 11 out of 42?
Well, you've got more options, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay. So really, I mean, I wrote last week in the Sheffield Telegraph, the season has been a failure. There's no two ways about that. But that Nigel Adkins has only been manager for one of those 5 years. So he's inherited all of that frustration, if you like.
Oh yeah, no, that's right.
He's not responsible for the other 4. We're going to talk more about Sheffield United and your record there, which was very, very, very good. You've experienced a sack a few times. It's just a reality, isn't it, for a football manager? It's not a stigma, is it?
No. I think Sir Fergie used to say, "You're not a manager unless you've been sacked 2 or 3 times."
No.
And he's right in a way. You don't get me wrong. You don't want that, because you carry that around with you, and you've got your family, and they're all upset, and it's a harrowing time. But
it must be devastating. The circumstances as well for you at Bramall Lane. But
I don't mind losing my job if you're not doing the business. But if you lose your job and you think, hang on, I've just both clubs I took a major
2 or 3
finals,
and
so. But listen, you have to move on.
Well, we will move on. More in part 2. Do rejoin us in 5 minutes. The second half's always even better than the first. See you then. Cup of tea, and we'll see you. Bye.